we're live. Well, we're not actually live. It's being recorded.
Okay. Recorded live.
But be recorded live, exactly. So, what I'd like to do with all of my guests is I'd like to put you on the spot a little early here, and it's called the Fiery Five Food Service Questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any one person, whether historical or alive, who would it be and why?
Um, any person, I mean, I just have to say the first thing that came to my mind, which is kind of ridiculous. It's Mickey Rourke back in the '80s when he was doing all of his like Pope of Greenwich Village type movies when he was not when he became crazy. But I just love
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke, and I always felt like I could be friends with him somehow. But we'd be at a diner in Omaha, Nebraska, in like this old beat up diner and we just sit there and talk about life. I know that seems weird, but
I don't think it's weird. No, it's
that
great.
is the first thing I always loved Mickey Rourke. I love anything Italianish. I mean, he's not necessarily Italian, but he definitely conveyed that kind of New York tough guy, cool thing. That I'm from Nebraska, so I'm Italian, but being a true New York Italian has always been my dream. I'm kind of
Yeah.
a hick Italian, basically.
My grandfather was born and raised in East Harlem in
Oh,
a little Italian community there. I think it's on East or it was like 118th Street, I think, or something like that. I may have just made up the
wow,
number, but
wow,
yeah, he was so in where he lived, the Italian mob was definitely very well and present. And growing up, he would run numbers. He sold ice for the mob. I don't think he was ever actually a mob member because as he got older, he left New York. He met a girl there, and she wanted to make it in Hollywood, so she moved out here to Los Angeles, and he followed her. And I've been a huge New York Yankee fan my whole life
right,
because of him. He was born in 1925, right? And so in the 20s, the Yankees were really good. They moved into their stadium, and I think in 1921 they had Murderers Row. In 1927, you
yes,
had Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth back then, and Hoyt Wilhelm, and just great players that are so famous. And he got to see that, and he'd tell me stories of like, I think the YMCA kids going into the games, and he'd go and his buddies would go kind of like, I don't know, beat him up or something and
right,
take their tickets and then go in. It's such an unsophisticated time. There's no phones or anything like that back then, but I always just thought it was such a cool, um, such a cool upbringing.
for sure, and congratulations on the Yankees. They're doing great right now.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's finally have a season where like, okay, I think we might have it here. We'll
Who's the
see.
Yankee that married Marilyn Monroe?
Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio. So he came into my family's restaurant, and I have a picture.
Oh, he did.
I need to send you a picture of him if you want to see it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
My brother has it on the wall where he came into our restaurant. It was a big day.
Amazing.
My grandpa came from Sicily, and he opened up. There was no room for my grandpa in New York at the time because they didn't have papers. So they sent him on the railroad to work on the railroad, and he ended up in Omaha, Nebraska as a result. So there's actually a
Wow.
ton of Italians in Omaha, Nebraska, believe it or not. There's even a
I would definitely not have believed that,
yeah,
or not that I did not believe it, not thought of that, but that's pretty cool.
it is, and so he worked on the railroad, Union Pacific Railroad, and it ended up in Omaha, going through Omaha, and he ended up living there and
Yeah.
stopped work on the railroad, and he turned his house into a restaurant. So this was back when you could do that without the health department or whatever the hell. I'm sure he,
Sure.
I'm sure he paid somebody off, right? He's Italian, but but he basically turned our family room was like a room with like 20 tables in it in his house. So imagine going to see your grandpa, but his house looks like a restaurant. So my nana would be in there making sauce with like a cow carcass and tomato paste, swimming around in it for 3 days, making that Midwest gravy, right? And there'd be a pig carcass in there too, I'm sure. But incredible sauce. So we were the biggest Italian restaurant between Chicago and Denver. Uh,
Wow.
and it's Nebraska. Unfortunately, you're in Nebraska, but we made it great, and it was really nationally famous at one point. We did a lot of steaks. Any Italian steakhouse.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had the good Nebraska beef, corn fed. My grandpa had dry aged beef, but it was, it was before the USDA came in and really controlled beef, so
Yeah.
we had like, New York strips that you could eat with a bouillon spoon, like incredibly like beautiful meat that, probably, I don't know. It was just amazing. We were famous for our steaks, but my grandpa he brought spaghetti and mustacholi basically to Omaha, Nebraska, and it was the beginning. We're in the Historical Society of Omaha now, our old restaurant. So
Is it still there, the restaurant?
no, no, it got the whole city moved out west and the
Mm.
Little Italy area of Omaha, Nebraska, which is off of 10th Street, they're all gone, but, there's a big cemetery that we call Lasagna Hill, and it's all vowels, it's just a bunch of Italian cemeteries, tombstones everywhere. But, there's a ton of Italian restaurants that came from Sicily, a lot of Sicilians, because by the time Italy got into New York, by the time the Sicilians made it over, there wasn't enough room, and that's
Mm.
that's because they're further down the boot, right? So they showed up late to the game, they had to go work on the railroad or do something outside of New York, so that's what got me in the business, and my grandpa died, but my dad kept the restaurant going, and I was a waiter or a busboy and a dishwasher for my grandpa and my dad at the age of 12. So I've been
Wow.
working in the business my whole life, and that led to me, leaving like you. I left and went out to California, basically because Nebraska culinary is, chicken fried steaks and poppers and, yeah. It's not food, like, I was blown away when I came out to California and I saw all the different ingredients that you could get to make
Sure.
food, coming from a restaurant family, it was like magic to see, a r I mean, I was trying to tell I used to do food sales for a distributor in Nebraska called Food Services of America, which is where I first
Yeah,
met.
I've heard of them.
You ever heard of them? Yeah, they're out of business
Yeah.
now, but there was a time they were huge. Uh,
Yeah.
they're now another company up in Washington called, I can't think of their name right now, Harbor or something, but
Harbor Food Service?
there you go. Yeah, so I started my business working for them, as a food service sales rep in Nebraska selling chicken fried steaks and poppers, and then I got a job, for a company called Buy Right Food Service in San Francisco, uh
Yeah.
when I came out to California because I already had experience. So that's when I started working for Buy Right, and I saw all the different products that were out here, and obviously the culinary environment in California is amazing, in the Bay Area
Mhm.
for sure, as you know. So I spent 25 years working as a distribution sales rep for Buy Right Food Service up until 5 years ago when I started my bakery.
Yeah.
While I was working at Buy Right, I'll tell this story as quickly as possible. I, uh, I had I was a sales rep selling to Airbnb, which is a corporate offices, and the chef over there was going to work at the Chase Center where the Warriors play, and he asked me to be a sales rep, and I found him a pretzel that somebody else sold that I distributed, and they ended up switching to another distributor instead of the company I worked for, even though I showed the product. So I was upset, and it ended up turning into me saying, "Well, maybe I'll just make my own pretzel company." So that was the beginning of Nisi's Craft Bakery. I took one of my customers, and he's a very, very, very accomplished baker. His name is Ricardo, and his story is fantastic. But he came from Mexico, and at a very young age, got a job working with Pascal Rigo, who's one of the very best bakers in the whole Bay Area. And he ended up creating a bakery that he sold to Starbucks for $100 million, and then he bought it back for 30 million when Starbucks didn't know what to do with $100 million bakery because they aren't bakers; they're who knows what Starbucks is, but but they're not bakers. And so Ricardo, my partner, worked with Pascal Rigo at a very young age, and he is as a result. God bless Ricardo. He's got an encyclopedic knowledge of bread. Like I thankfully have the most incredible baking partner I could imagine. So He created the pretzel that we're selling now, and after the pretzel started doing really well, with all my experience in food service sales, I know all of the different types of items that chefs buy frozen for breads. All the breads that restaurants use, I know them very well. There's, I know about 80% of every single bread any restaurant would ever want. And I have created Nisi's Craft Bakery now to mimic and have a version, if you will, of all of those same breads that restaurants have been buying from other companies and that I used to sell when I was a distributor sales rep. So I basically just made what I think is a much better version of all of those same breads. And now I'm so happy to be working with Ricardo every day, growing, and we're seeing incredible growth in the Bay Area and now into LA and Vegas as well. And it's just been really wonderful and learning about you know all the needs of these restaurateurs and filling them with incredible bread has just been a real delight. You know.
Chris, can I ask you? Working for you were with Byright for 25 years. That's a long time. And for those that may not be familiar with Byright, maybe live on other parts of the country or just not familiar, that's a very reputable distributor in
Most
California.
most
I think it's
definitely.
family owned, and they do a really nice job. What was it that said, after your career there, why'd you feel like it was time to break off and start your own bakery?
Well, it's sort of like one of those things in life where you don't realize you're doing something when you're doing it and how it's going to
Hmm.
change your life, but while you're doing it. It started off as a hobby because I was, obviously a full-time sales rep for Buy Right, selling millions and millions of dollars of food for them every year. And, it was just something fun to do. But once it started to catapult and, now we've got over almost 2,500 restaurants now buying bread from Nisi's. And, it just got to the point where I couldn't manage both at the same time. And it was hard to keep, take care of my job at Byright and also, run the bakery because I have, um, it's easy for me mentally, but the vantage point, it was just much better for me to, move on and grow into this new role, which I'm so happy now. Honestly, it's so much better to have your own company than it is to work for somebody. And I
Yeah.
and I mean nothing but respect for the Berlich family that owns the Byright distribution company. They are amazing people. They're family. They'll always be family. And they've been very good to me. And yes, you're absolutely right, Nick. They're so good. They're several $100 million company, and they're like the 20th overall distributor in the whole nation in volume, and that's saying something. And they're quite the darling of the Bay Area. They're very well respected, and they promote brands. They're not looking to force feed buy right food to people. They're promoting gourmet brands, and that's what the chefs of the Bay Area demand, and they get that. And of course, service is their number one product. So at least that's what I would tell people when I was talking to them. But it's a beautiful business to work with, and I'm extremely grateful for them always, always.
How would you describe your journey thus far, over the past 5 years as an entrepreneur?
Well, it's been fun. It's been scary, and a lot of it has to do with believing in myself, which is always the uh, exciting hurdle to go over in life. Is to stop asking other people to help you with stuff that you realize later you can just do yourself. Not everybody needs an expert for every question. One of the parts of the journey that have been really eye opening for me is seeing hard work not pay off for a while and then out of the blue watch it all just start paying off like crazy, and trusting the process that, I've been making other people rich my entire life.
Mhm.
And I'll say that again. I've been making people rich my entire life, other people rich my entire life, and so in a way, building this company and being an entrepreneur was assisted by the training I received in helping other brands grow their businesses. Helping other brands find the right customers and find the right products and deliver it in a way that people want it. In a high level way. I've always most of the customers I dealt with at Buy Right were top tier customers. I really have nothing but respect and love for all restaurants, but in food service, it pays to work with the winners. And,
Yeah.
as a result, I would tailor all of my customer lists and engagements with only the best people because success breeds success. And so the very first customer I went after and got before I started this company was Pebble Beach Golf Course because I knew that they were premium. I knew that they wouldn't buy from somebody unless they were amazing. And one thing about food service that tends to work quite a bit is there's a lot of copycatting when somebody successful comes through the industry and they're being purchased by some high-end restaurants. It seems that other high-end restaurants will follow suit if if they're aware of the other high-end customers. And as a result, now we've got the Sphere in Las Vegas, we've got Four Seasons hotels, I've got Ritz Carlton. We love everyone, but we love to talk about our big shot customers as well. I've got the Giant Stadium, I've got the 49ers Stadium is coming on board next week. Actually, I'm meeting with them. So and the luxury boxes are a big space for us. So the back to your question though, the journey of being an entrepreneur, of having the ability to realize that you know what you're doing, even if you don't believe it. Being trusting yourself, I think is a big thing for me. That I've always worked for somebody else my whole life. And
Yeah.
when you're an entrepreneur, you work for the dumbest person or the smartest person. It's yourself. You can't change that. So the I do have a lot of good friends. Over the years of working this business, I've developed a huge Rolodex of chefs and consultants and buyers and sales reps. I know I'm very connected up here in the Bay Area, and it's a lot of being an entrepreneur is treating people right because you never know when you're going to need somebody's help.
Totally.
I live on my relationships. I live on
Y-
'em.
being an entrepreneur myself, I know that when I look at my day to day, or even um, over a month or a quarter, or a year, I have strengths and I have weaknesses. And I think one of my strengths is, um, I think sales is a strength of mine. I also think people and building a culture is also another strength of mine. Yeah. But there's certain things that I don't do well, such as I'm not a manager. I'm never been good at it. I don't know if it's, I could probably be good at it if I tried, but just not something that it excites me. Other thing like operations, that types of functions in my business. I'm just not the operations guy. Are there parts in your business that you've found that you've had to fill in, but it really goes against you? Like it's just not your thing, but you have to do it.
Yes. So I need to mention a lady named Adair, and you know, when you're grabbing at straws trying to find people that you need someone to help you manage, especially for me, as you can imagine in a bakery, there's a lot of uh multiple competing priorities, from marketing to sales to manufacturing to order processing and all of those things. And intellectually, I understand how to do it, but like you, I don't want to manage them. And I have the gift of working with this wonderful lady named Adair who it's just lovely to have someone that has your back, and has great advice. And so I'm nothing without Adair or Ricardo and my baking partners up in Napa Valley. It's so much in having people with their skill sets in place that can really help out. I've got a whole marketing team now as well, web development and and a food stylist, a food photographer. It does take a village, to create what I'm doing. And I people look at me and they're like, "How do you do all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't do anything. I've got people that are really good at this stuff." I just am kind of everybody's cheerleader at this point,
Sure.
Obviously, they ask me a few questions about this or that, but, it's just funny how things just start to come together and you don't realize, like I said before, that all of your efforts are adding up whether you realize it or not, and your credibility gets bigger and bigger. But, again, I just really do think the people around you are so important in your organization to to trust them and, you know, be grateful for them and let them know how important they are to you all the time.
Where do you hope to take your business?
Nationally. So
Okay.
I literally got a call this morning, and we're going into a restaurant in Texas now. So I'm trying to become a national brand, right now. In Our main focus is in Los Angeles, of course, because we've pretty much saturated the Bay Area, but we're not done with the Bay Area by any step of the imagination. But the hope and dream is to be able to go onto the East Coast. The person that owns the Sphere owns Madison Square Garden, and they want our pretzels and buns in Madison Square Garden. But I'm more focused on Los Angeles right now. But for me, I'm playing with the idea that I can be as big as I want to be, even though
Mhm.
I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I like to say, if you can't say it, you can't do it. So
Yeah. Are you growing organically,
yeah,
or are you taking in capital?
no, there was zero investment in this company. Everything's been
Wow.
growing organically, and we're 85% year over year growth every year. So that
Yeah.
we actually, with one distributor, we're up 12% over last month. So it's the growth is wonderful, and we're just getting started, because we're about to launch sample kits that we're going to be sending out to restaurants all over the place that are going to really catapult our customers' awareness, or our potential customers' awareness of us, in a very efficient and very polished way that I'm extremely proud of. I can't wait to launch these sample kits. We're going to be building them next week, actually. And anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah. I'm curious, based on what you know today versus what you knew 5 years ago when you started Nisi's, is there anything that you do different back on day one that you know now?
Uh, well, the funny thing is, yeah, this whole thing started with one pretzel, and now we have 60 SKUs. So, everybody that's worked with me thinks I'm crazy because, I'm constantly like, we need this item, we need that item, we need a lobster roll, we need a Philly cheesesteak, we need ciabatta, we need sourdough. I mean, I've been selling everybody else's brand, so I know how much each item can sell in the marketplace. I know it's important. So it's some people say, "Oh, do one thing and do it really well," but I hope it's my strength. I keep expanding our offerings to fit every I want every restaurant to be able to buy at least one thing from our bakery. That's my dream. I wanna up disrupt the baking industry by offering frozen artisan bread that we're selling here. We're not delivering fresh bread, but I can tell you from personal experience that we outcut all of the highest of high-end local bakeries in San Francisco because of the extra steps that we take when we make our bread. Our sourdough takes 3 days to make. Our brioche buns take 2 days to make. Our pretzels take 2 days because we ferment. All the things that we do take so much time in a bakery that most bakeries would go out of business if they were trying to do what we did. Mainly because they wouldn't have the space. Because we mix our dough and we throw it in the refrigerator and let it sit there and develop into beautiful, complex flavors and crust developments, and the interiors, the soft, airy interiors of our breads. All that stuff happens with all the extra long fermentation times, and we also let our dough just sit in the outside before we bake it. It's kind of like on a steak. You ever cook a really good steak? You gotta let it
Mhm.
sit when it comes out of the off the grill and let the juices come back in. Just like that with bread, you gotta let one of our big mottos at our bakery is love takes time. So we love really good bread, and we're not trying to make really high volume cheap bread. That's the exact opposite of our business. There's tons of companies that do that. It's very easy for anybody to find that stuff. What we're doing is our frozen artisan breads, because we take all this extra time with fermentation, with, zero yeast in our starters. We use, I mean, in our sourdough, we use only a natural starter. And Ricardo, when he was working with all of these old bakers, he got a super old starter that's over 100 years old. So he's been keeping it alive for 30 years. He's got it, growing in 6 different places so that nothing ever happens to it. Like, we have redundancy plans for the future to keep we call it Gold Rush sourdough. And because we don't use yeast and we ferment for 3 days, all those things, like most bakeries, they mix the dough, they shape it, they bake it, they package it, they deliver it. Here's your fresh bread. Isn't it great? But what we say is, what, you don't know how much bread you're going to use every day? But you got a crystal ball? Like, you're going to have breadcrumbs and croutons if you order too much bread, because you're going
Yeah,
to, or you're going to throw it away and you got some lucky birds around you. But for us, you're spending a little bit more maybe for our breads, but you're getting way better bread and you're not wasting it. There's complete control over most chefs complain about for food costs and, obviously the stress of being a chef. We get rid of that in for the bread part, because then they know that it's always coming. They know how to get it up. It's always available if they're distributors. So it's, anyways, I'm not gonna pitch too hard on my bakery, but the long and short of it is, the purpose of our bakery is to fix the problem that chefs have for when it comes to getting true artisan breads. I mean, chefs spend all this time making the most incredible hamburgers with, prime grade brisket blend beef and, incredible sauces, caramelizing their onions, getting local cheeses, and then they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, what do we got for bread around here?" And then they just grab whatever the hell they can get somebody to deliver them. They're just like, and that's the first thing that goes in your mouth when you eat a hamburger is the bun. Let's make that the best part, or one of the best parts, and everybody's got to make money, and customers want repeat, or chefs want repeat customers. They don't want to be just as good as everybody else. They want to be better. So we're trying to empower our customers to be the best restaurant in their neighborhood. And bread is extremely important part of dining. And most restaurants don't know how to bake their own bread. They're kind of at the mercy of whatever's around them. So back to the disrupting thing is, with distribution to chefs, and we're available, through many distributors now. There's pretty much no way any restaurant would have any problem getting our bread. It's just more about their awareness of the quality and the way to handle it properly. And
sure.
so long story short is, I don't even know what the question was you asked, honestly. I'm a rambler, I forgot to tell you.
No, you're good. You're good. I could sense your passion for sure, on calls that we've had. And it I would imagine, if I were to just be a fly on the wall watching you out there in the trade, that the door opens because people love you.
She's
And you've got a great personality. You're very kind. um, but they open the door to see you, but they stick around for the quality of products that you're producing, and I
it's
think that
true.
says something,
Thank you.
especially in this food business. I've sold all different kinds of food, just as you have with your distribution background.
Yes, you sure have.
And our team, when we go out, a lot of times, hey, they'll open up the door. Yeah, Nick, I know you. Come on in. And then you show them the product, and then they buy it because they like you, but the product isn't that great, and so you have to constantly resell it. I think what you're building is something truly special, and I think it's showing probably in your numbers, right, in your overall revenue. It's showing in the distribution, people really getting behind the product and backing you. So I think that says something. That's really not easy to do. There's a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the food space, that try and fail. And I remember talking to you, I think a couple of years ago, maybe a
Yeah.
year or two
Like, it
ago,
was
and
it was like
see,
3 years ago when I was stalking you.
yeah, you were just starting out, and
It
here you
was.
are now. And I mean, I say this, that a lot of times that when I talk to a manufacturer to work with them, they need to have a certain revenue threshold, and that revenue threshold is very high. Um, and when we first chatted, you weren't there yet, but here you are. Everybody always says, "Okay, I'll be back around."
Right.
You're the only one who has come back
Aren't
around,
you sweet?
and
Oh, that's
I think that's pretty cool of what you've been able to build. So just for anybody listening out there, I really recommend. How can we? Let's start. Let me ask this: how can someone find you at Nisi's Bakery?
great question. It's probably my favorite question anybody's ever asked me. Thank you. So if you go to our website, and my Nisi's is spelled, everybody thinks I say an M, but I'm not. It's an N. So it's Nisi's. N is in Nancy. So it's Nisis Craft Bakery, nisiscraftbakery.com. If you go to my website, there's a button that says put Nisi's on your menu. And if you go there and you click that button, all you got to do is just put the distributors down that you want to work with and then click on everything you like that you see. I've got all the pictures of all my breads. You can say you want this or that. You like this hamburger bun. I've got a new pretzel bun. It's actually the signature hamburger bun of the Chase Center. The Golden State Warriors use it. It's our vegan pretzel bun. They love it. But we have ciabattas, sourdoughs. Anyways, they click through all that stuff. They hit submit, and then we have a team of people that will reach out to them immediately and connect with their distributor and identify the products that they want for them, and they can start getting our stuff immediately. We're in the LA market, Vegas market, and obviously the Bay Area for now. But very, very soon, we're going to be in all 14 Western states. We've got We've got the ability to, again, only deliver through distribution. We don't deliver direct, but people can pick up from our bakery in Napa Valley, FOB, our bakery in Napa Valley. Again, all you got to do is just click the "Put Nisi's" on your menu button, and we will get a hold of you right away. We've got a whole team of people that monitor that, and we can ship out samples and obviously work with you if you're really big, we want to take care of you. If you're really small, we want to take care of you. Anybody. But you'll find that our products, including our pretzels, which are made with our sourdough starter, are miles beyond what you see in the marketplace right now. And as a result, if any breweries out there, golf courses, hamburger restaurants, country clubs, any fine dining or even family restaurants are all going to have something they can buy from us. And you'll know when you try it. I haven't lost a cutting, and I've been in food service like you, Nick, my whole life, and I've had, this ketchup and that fry oil and this chicken and that onion ring, and I've been selling thousands and thousands of different food products, and there's always gonna be something better than me. "Oh, well, I like this onion ring better. Can you give me that one? I don't have it." "Oh, I like this french fry better." With my bread, every time I go against somebody, and I not to be all competitive, but I win. I win every time. I don't I God bless Ricardo, my partner. I love him. When I talk about him, I get emotional. I didn't want to talk about him anymore. I'll start crying, frankly. But the guy's just amazing. And the bread I get to represent for him is surreal. It's so good. You only know it when you try it. And everybody wants to try it. So we do have sample kits that'll showcase our quality levels. Um, Again, I don't even know if I'm answering your questions anymore, but I'm
No, it's
I'm back to my rambling state. But I'm
perfect.
very excited about what we have, and I know it's something that restaurants love and need and appreciate. And while bread, we are not the cheap bread company, but overall, bread is negligible. It's not that big of a cost in the grand scheme of overall food cost in food service. So I think it's okay to throw a few pennies out for way better bread. I make that argument all day long, and people that really care about their quality they really appreciate all the extra steps that we take to make our bread, because I think the kind of effort that chefs make is for to make their food amazing is the same effort that we put into our bread so that, we're commensurate with the same level of quality that they promote, and we feel like we can partner with those people very well.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, You're the man. Thanks for joining me, and I appreciate you taking time to do this.
Thank you, Nick. I do appreciate you and all the good people at Portillo's. And I hope to talk to you again really soon.